Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Furtado, Justin Furtado, where we pass wisdom from generation to generation. And today's guest is the one and only Matt Cendejas. Matt is a professor in business at CR, College of the Redwoods, and also a content creator. In our conversation today, we dive into all things leadership, talk about listening, talk about how to begin your career and your journey as a content creator, and his journey going from nonprofit creator to Special Olympics to businessman to where he is today. So, hey, without further ado, you're going to get a lot of gold nuggets in this conversation, so definitely grab some notes and let's dive in. Hello, Matt, and welcome to the Bridging Impact Podcast. I am thrilled for another conversation with you today. For those of you listening that have been following me for a long time, Matt was on the Better World Challenge podcast. He came on a podcast that I never officially published. We used to go IG Live together every Tuesday. So we've been talking, we've been collaborating, we've been working together for a long time. So I'm thrilled to have you on. And with that being, even though you're an old friend, old guest, but new podcast, means it's this Bridging Impact question, which is, what is your definition of impactful leadership and how does it show up in your everyday life?
Awesome. Good question. Good question, Justin. Thanks for having me on today. Stoked to be here and do another podcast. To answer the question, so impactful leadership, now when I hear those two words, I automatically think of these like mindsets that I've had the last 10 years, I'd say, like the ripple effect and snowball effect of really everything we do in life. And if you're a true impactful leader, then your ripple effect and snowball effect will be positive enforcement and like a positive reinforced feedback loop. So when I think of those two words put together, I think if somebody is going to be making an impact on other people's lives positively, then they are a leader. And if you are a leader and you choose to do things and help others and show others the way, then I think you're going to have a lot of people coming to your side, supporting you, supporting your vision, and might even either join hands with you someday, collaborate with you, be part of your business. So I love when I see leaders do things that are actually truly impactful, truly like authentic and genuine. And we're all humans and we're all animals and primal in some way. So I think we can easily see somebody not being genuine or authentic. So I think true impactful leadership is someone who's authentic, genuine, and truly trying to leave a lasting impact, which happens through the ripple effect and snowball effect of doing something great, right? Something great happens, other people get inspired, other people start to do great things. Those people inspire others, other people see them, and those others choose to do great things. And that's the ripple effect that I think happens.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's like role modeling the way. It's being the light. It's being that person that's shining on other people and having that ripple effect. And I'd love to kind of go back in time a little bit to maybe even, when we met, I don't even know how many years ago it is. And maybe even to before that. And so when you started thinking about this as a young leader, about creating your own ripple effect, I would love to just hear about your early journey and how you got started into your leadership journey.
I think when I first realized I was a leader was when I was volunteering with Special Olympics when I was in high school.
Okay.
My little brother has autism and he's 4 years younger than me, but he's an athlete. He's just like me, right? He loves swimming, bowling, basketball, baseball, and he would have Special Olympic sports all year round. When he started, he was probably like 11 or 12, and I was 14, 15, freshman in high school. So I would go to these events, right, at the swimming pool or at the baseball field. And I was a volunteer, so I would help him and help other athletes. And through that experience, and I've been volunteering with Special Olympics for, 15 years now, I really have seen myself become a leader. And even back then in high school, helping out the athletes, being a bigger brother and helping out the coaches, I realized very quickly that I was a good asset for the team. And I would come to all the practices and the events and, just help out in every way I can. And seeing people's reactions and parents coming up to me and thanking me, or athletes, looking at me and saying like, thank you, and giving their appreciation, however that was. I really kind of start to feel like, wow, I'm making an impact. like at these Special Olympic events in high school. We're pretty young, 14, 15, 16, we're in our own world, but I still was like feeling this feeling of like, ooh, I want to keep doing this. Like, I love making this impact over here at Special Olympics. And then senior year of high school, I chose to do a fire academy and try to pursue firefighting with Cal Fire. And then after high school, I went to College of Redwoods and continued firefighting. And through firefighting, I felt myself becoming a leader. I looked up to captains, and I looked up to people who I thought were leaders in the fire service. But I eventually stopped firefighting and I went to the nonprofit sector, and I started a nonprofit while I was going to college, right? So I think from Special Olympics to firefighting and then to the nonprofit world, really just getting a little juiced up from traveling with the nonprofit. I came back to the United States and was so excited for my experience that I wanted to start a organization myself. And that took a lot of grit and stamina to do, when especially everyone's like, what, you're not a business person? Like, you've never started a business. You've never ran an organization like this. So there was a lot of pressure to like not do that. But I think I was just ready through my years of confidence and my years of going through high school with, doing Special Olympics from firefighting. I mean, those things might not seem related, but I felt like a leader through both of them. And I think it gave me all the confidence I needed to really start my organization and just keep doing.
I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think number one, just recognizing that the public service has kind of always been in you. And so whether it's firefighting or working with Special Olympics to the nonprofit world, you always wanted to kind of serve other people. And even obviously we'll eventually fast forward to where you are today and talk a little bit more about how leadership is showing up in what you're doing now. But one of the things I'm even realizing, like for those that are listening, it's just that like leadership starts at a young age. You're talking about 14, 15. And for those of us that are working with youth and different athletes and listening to Matt's story, it's an amazing opportunity to recognize that leadership starts at such a young age, right? And you can help tap into people's leadership at such a young age. So now I want to, kind of keep going forward and talk about something that you were mentioning with the nonprofit world and how you were entering and you were starting. How did you navigate that imposter syndrome? Because you were young when you started that. Like, and I'm sure you probably had your supporters, but also you probably had a lot of people that, obviously doubted your abilities, and maybe when they're asking for fundraising, they might be questioning it a little extra because you haven't had your skin in the game. So how did you navigate those challenges?
I just didn't let people telling me no get to me, or I didn't let failure like slow me down. There was numerous conversations I had with people and they were telling me not to do it. Countless more conversations with people telling me not to do it than people telling me to do it. And I just didn't let that get to me. I remember trying to have as many conversations with as many different people about my idea to start a nonprofit that I could. So those were teachers, classmates, friends, family, people I'd see on the street that I haven't seen in years, be like, hey, I'm about to start this thing. Like, do you know anybody doing a nonprofit or have any ideas or tips? Like, people would be thrown off, like, what? I'm in the grocery store. I don't know, like, maybe do it. I'd like throw people off. So my tactic at the time, I was 22 years old and I wanted to start a nonprofit. And my tactic was just cast a huge net and just ask as many people questions as I could, people that were in the nonprofit industry, people that were not in the nonprofit industry, and just hear everyone's opinions. And from there, I would take everyone's collective opinions and form my own like strategy. And I kind of like, to answer your question, like, how did I fight the imposter syndrome? I just like really did not let no get to me. And it is hard sometimes, especially when it's like somebody you really care about, like my mom's always been supportive, but imagine if somebody out here listening to this is like, has this idea and they tell their mom and their mom's like, what, that's dumb. Like, don't do that. Like, what do you mean? Stay in school or like, like do this, like, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing that, like that hurts. Like it hurts sometimes. And sometimes I have ideas that I share with my mom and she's like, no. And I'm like, oh, darn. Okay. But, so people that you love and you care about, sometimes those are the opinions we hold on to the most. Right. And I think a lot of people that we share with are the people that we maybe feel most comfortable with, but also we are most vulnerable sharing to them because we'll take their opinion too heavily. And we really should be, I think, to anyone listening, like seek out people who you know and who are professionals and who are in the industry that you want to get in. Like, that's the most efficient way. Talk to people that are in, if you want to start a nonprofit, talk to everybody you can in a nonprofit industry, in a nonprofit company, because they have the most knowledge, right? If you're talking to a family member or a friend who has never worked for a nonprofit or never been a part of a nonprofit, then their opinion, how much, like, what caliber is their opinion versus the caliber of somebody else's opinion that has maybe some experience in that field. So at the time, I talked to everybody I could, mostly from nonprofit industry, but really anybody, just to hear anybody's thoughts.
So when you were talking to people, you were kind of like, having the awareness that those that worked in the nonprofit industry, those are the opinions you probably, weighed on and mattered a little more to you.
Yeah.
And so when you're pursuing something and an idea, a way of doing something, a career path, it's valuing obviously our own and trusting, and how much of it was intuition that you just felt it was right versus like, logic and, like what was really pulling you towards wanting to start the nonprofit? Because you have to have some sort of, I'm drawing a blank on the word, but just like commitment to the mission to kind of push through that. No. So I'm really drawing a blank on the word, but I'll let you go.
So the question was, what did I do?
What was really driving you to kind of push through those no's and continue? Like what about it? Was it there an intuition? Was something calling you, or what was that main driving force?
I think I've always had good intuition. I'd say I trust in my gut and I trust in myself. But I think so. Okay. So when I would ask people questions, I always give them my ears and I always, let them know that I'm listening and I'm paying attention. Even if within the first 2 or 3 seconds, I know that anything they're going to say is just going to be completely like nothing I'm going to actually take in and use, but really listen to people. And when you ask them questions or when you're talking to people, or they come up to you and they want to talk to you about things, I think the best thing to do is actually listen and hear them out. But also don't take what they say too literally. And that's where your intuition comes in, right? Somebody come up to you and say, oh, this is, you're doing things that are not ethically sound, or you're flying in planes to East Africa. You know how many carbon emissions that is, or, why are you spending so much money on plane tickets when you could just be sending the money over there and doing, better use with that. And one time I brought a team of like 9 people and somebody got on my case and was like, yo, 9 people times $1,200 plane tickets. Like, you guys spent over 10 grand in just plane tickets to get there. Like, why can't you use that money to buy the school that you're trying to buy? And those things is like, well, you're focusing on a problem when there is a solution that needs to happen also. And we could all identify problems. Like, animals are very keen on identifying problems, but I think less animals are keen on finding solutions. So you got to trust your instincts. You got to trust your gut. And when people are going to be saying things like, the naysayers, or people saying things that really are just kind of maybe attacking you, like, you got to kick in your confidence and your kick in your intuition. It's like, okay, well, they might be hurting or they might be upset. They might have had a bad day. Don't take anything they do literally. Just trust your gut and keep going, because people will try to tear you down. It's like the crab barrel effect. People don't like where they sit in life, and they want to pull anyone down that maybe is going to advance to the next level.
Yeah, no, I think you're bringing up an interesting point of, like, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, people are going to judge. Some people are going to judge. So, like, if you say that with an Inspire One, y'all were just raising money, and instead of going, and they just send the money, and then people would be like, well, some other people might be like, well, you have no personal connection to them. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why aren't you sending people to like actually be there and see what it's like? Right. Like, there's always going to be people that have some sort of an opinion, but kind of recognizing that, one of the things that I'm realizing as a coach is, like, you just can't make everyone happy. Like, if you want to make everyone happy, you sell ice cream is what, there's a quote out there from a football coach. And I'm just like, yeah, you're right. Like, you really can't. And so with that, I really love, what you're talking about, kind of doing that and having your own self-awareness. And it sounds like something that self-awareness has kind of been intuitive for you, but how have you continued to cultivate that throughout your journey and just listening to, because you've gone from different projects, so you've kind of gone through different evolutions, and how does your self-awareness continue to evolve?
That's a good question, Justin. I really actually think a lot about this. And I think that, so when I do something in one industry, I identify what works, what doesn't work, and I keep it in my memory. And then when I'm in a different industry or a different project, I will take out that box, that treasure chest of like things that worked and didn't work in totally unrelated project, and I'll see, okay, how can I relate those successes to this right here? And that is called association in the business world. And I think it's a very powerful term. I bring it up to all of my classes in college. And I tell my students, like, look, if you're able to truly associate in life, then that will totally advance your career. And now what I mean by that is, say you're doing a project and like you're a basketball coach and you're coaching basketball and you're talking to your athletes. You can't make everyone happy, but you're being a good coach, right? And then you go home and then you go to a family and you have kids. And then, how do you, parent? Well, sometimes parenting is really relatable to a lot of other things in life. So if you're able to associate those successes as a basketball coach, then maybe you can utilize some of those skills that worked on the athletes to your kid who's maybe 3 or 4 years old and figuring out life. And so if you're able to like identify what worked over here and then use it over here, it might be totally unrelated projects or unrelated things, but that's what association is. And I think I really do that well. I think I'm able to do things in one industry or one company and bring some of those things that worked to a totally unrelated topic. And that's just what I think truly works. But it's really hard to teach that, and it's hard to tell someone, oh, you have a lot of house plants and you take care of those plants and you give them water every 3 or 4 days. Like, the schedule of your plants and what they like. Well, what if you're out at a bar and you're watching a basketball game and you see somebody spill a drink? Well, somehow you watering your plants and caring for the plants will let you care for somebody who's falling down, and you jump to their rescue and pick them up, and you grab a towel from the waiter because they're fixing their hurt knee, and you're like, how is watering plants and how is helping someone off the ground related? Well, you're caring for a plant, you're caring for somebody who just fell. They might not seem related, and nobody out here might think they're related, but somehow I believe that so many things in the world are connected. And if you're able to see like the fishing line between the two dots, I think that'll just help you out in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful example of being able to recognize and see and connect the caring between plants and caring for humans as well. But I see it as opportunity to, kind of utilizing experiences and transferring them to our next evolutions, and using the word that you use, associating, mm-hmm. Inspire one with what you're doing now and teaching, and kind of like continuing to evolve. And I think I want to touch on a point that you made a few comments ago, was just talking about like listening and really listening to people, because I think that's like actually like a very underrated skill, because I listen to it. Sometimes I'm in meetings, sometimes I'm in huddles or whatever it may be, and we're talking and someone will bring up a completely different point, or I'll make a point and someone will just bring something else up, and it's just like, I can tell you're not listening. You're just thinking about what you want to say next. Yeah, I'm curious if you have like any other, kind of like, obviously, technical tips, but also just like tips on how you utilize or listening with your leadership.
I think, eye contact and body language are very, maybe even underrated at this point. 90 to 93% of communication is totally nonverbal. And I think that's fascinating. So understanding that, well, okay, let's break that down. So it's nonverbal is the majority of the conversation. So you got the way you look, the way you dress, your body language, your eye contact, how you responding to their questions. So are you echoing what they're saying? Now, if they say something to you and they're opening up and they're saying like, oh, my aunt's in the hospital. I've had a rough day. I didn't sleep well. Like work was long. Well, then you don't want to just say, oh man, okay, well, hey, do you want to go watch the Warriors game? It's on in 6 minutes. We probably should start walking. You probably should be like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a hard day. Like, do you want to talk about it a little bit more? Like, is your aunt going to be okay? Like that is the advanced answer. You don't just jump into your life. If you're listening and truly listening, you're going to be echoing what they're saying. And that's like number one. Like when I see that not happen, I'm just like, somebody's opening up to you and you're not even going to ask them another question about that. Like, come on, y'all. Like people need to understand that if you want to be a strong listener, you have to genuinely care about what other people are saying. It's not just looking and listening and waiting for your turn. It's looking and listening. And literally when I'm looking and listening, I'm trying to think, okay, what am I going to ask them about what they're saying? So if they're talking about their maybe not bad day, let's switch it up. They're talking about their great day. Like, oh, I woke up, went on a morning run, and then I had a nice lunch with my boss, and then I found out I got a raise. Well, okay, you're thinking in your head, okay, boss, raise, went on morning run. Oh my gosh, you got a raise? Like how much do you get a big raise? Like tell me about your raise. That's awesome. Or, oh, morning run. Like running is something I want to get into in the morning. Like where'd you go? How far did you run? You want to ask follow-up questions. And that's like key to a good listener, right? Ask follow-up questions. Of course, eye contact, body language, everyone knows that. But how to answer is part of listening, right? Listening is listening, but also answering back is a huge part of listening.
Dang, if we just ended that end of the podcast right there, I just want them to take that away. So I mean, there's already been a lot of gold nuggets, but seriously, good. Like I think you talk about like that. Everyone knows it's eye contact and body language, and I feel like everyone knows a lot of things that they should be doing, but don't.
Yeah,
and I would love for you to kind of continue to expand on. Like, I think that's something that you've been really keen on and focusing and locked in on. It's just doing things that benefit you, obviously in the present, right? But also benefit long-term Matt.
Mm-hmm. So what are things that benefit them in the present, but long-term me?
You can just share your experience about how you've kind of like recognized that you utilize obviously the present moment and don't completely disregard it and be like future Matt. But also you recognize that you don't want to, do different things that hurt, present or future Matt by doing certain activities in the present moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, this makes me think of, something along lines of, being true to your promises and not over promising. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes when we're listening to folks and we're talking to somebody, they'll be like, oh, let's go to the beach this week. How does Wednesday sound? You're like, Wednesday? In your head, you're like, yeah, Wednesday sounds good. But maybe in your head, you're like, oh, dude, Wednesday's not good. Like, I can't do that. But you just tell them, oh, yes, like, let's do it on Wednesday. So in the short term, you're maybe like making them happy and excited that you're going to go to the beach Wednesday. But Wednesday comes around and you got to send the text like, oh, sorry, I can't make it because of this. But if you were an advanced engager or an advanced communicator, you would say immediately, oh, I can't on Wednesday. Is there another day? Or I'm sorry, I can't this week. Let's continue talking, but let's maybe not commit to anything right now because I can't commit right now. That's a harder answer. And people sometimes don't want to tell people no. And that's something I honestly have been working on for the last years, really trying to be up and honest and not being afraid to let people down, because I hate letting people down. I mean, if I'm going to be honest right now, I hate giving people the bad news, letting them know, oh, I can't do that. Or, sometimes, and before I would tell people a lot like, oh yeah, I'm down. I'm for sure down. I'll be there. But, the day comes and I got to send the text like, hey, sorry, I can't make it. But I really think that people build habits off of what they do, and people start to see patterns in folks. So I right now can think of the people that truly just never commit. And I know I have friends like that'll say, I'm down, let's do this. And if you don't text them, they will never even text you. They won't even be like, I'm sorry, I can't make it. They just will not say anything. And if you bring it up, they'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, darn it. Like, you do not want that reputation. You don't want to be the friend in your group that doesn't commit. That just is not a good taste. It doesn't, nobody likes that. And then you might be the butt of a joke,
Right.
or people might become like, oh yeah, well, Matt never comes through. Like, you don't want that, So I think being part of a listener and a communicator, which we all are, we got to be able to be honest with our peers and honest with ourselves and tell people no. Just be comfortable telling people no. I think that's a good strategy. And on the flip, I saw this video recently that was talking about rejection therapy. And so rejection therapy is seeking out being rejected. And so to get practice with failure, right? Just a second ago, I was talking about something different, but now I'm talking about failure, rejection, right? So if you are seeking rejection, then maybe you'll be going out and you're going to a coffee shop and you're buying a coffee, and just ask. This is for anybody listening. Truly try this. Everybody listening, try this. So you go to a coffee shop and you order coffee and they say, okay, that'll be $3.99 or $3.80. And you say, oh, can I get 10% off on that? And they'll be like, no. And then you say, oh, why not? And then they'll be like, I don't know. Like, there's no discount. And then you say, oh, okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask. But you're literally going out and seeking being rejected. And that is, I saw this video recently, and this guy tries to get rejected 100 times a month, and he logs it. And I was like, wow, that is so good, because business leaders and business mentors, consultants, anything you really do, you got to call people, you got to communicate, you got to ask, and you got to be open. And getting rejected is hard and it hurts. And the more you can practice that, the better. So I think if you're trying to become a good communicator, you got to listen, you got to hear people out, you got to echo their words. But also on the flip, if you're trying to actually build a different skill that is not being afraid to ask, then you got to try maybe some rejection therapy and go out and seek being rejected, right? Ask every store clerk. It doesn't matter if you're trying to buy a Nike sweatshirt from a Nike store, ask them, hey, can I get 5% off on this? They'll look at you like you're crazy, but it's okay because you're practicing, and then it'll probably end up in a laugh and you'll be like, okay, no, that's fine. I'll still take it anyway. But that's something I saw recently. I was like, ooh, I gotta adopt that a little bit. I gotta practice my rejection therapy.
And have you done it? Have you practiced? Do you have a story about it yet?
No, I actually haven't. I just saw the video last week, but thanks for keeping me accountable. I should practice that immediately.
All right. We'll share a follow-up video once you do that with the podcast, so that people can see it.
For sure.
Perfect. But to follow up on that, I think you obviously had two parts to that response. It was number one was just being an honest communicator, and that's something that I'm working on as well. Being able to give people feedback and being able to be honest and be like, hey, if I'm coaching a coach, if I'm working with a coach, I'm like, hey, you can't do that. Like, that's still something I'm continuing to work on myself. And I think you're also talking about something as well. It's just following through, obviously with others. But I think, following through with ourselves. Like if Matt says he's going to do, post 3 TikToks a day, Monday through Friday, he's keeping a promise to himself if he does that. And I think a lot of people, break promises with themselves, and that erodes trust with themselves, right? You have to kind of build trust with yourself first, and then others. And then that kind of builds that and breeds that confidence comes within. It doesn't come from the outside. It doesn't come from money. It doesn't come from championships, actually, because I don't know if you know who Eric Spoelstra is. He's the Miami Heat head coach, and he's talked about his struggle with imposter syndrome. And he had more imposter syndrome when he had LeBron, and he had even more imposter syndrome after they won the finals. Wow. And so that means that external, validators, being the best in the world, you're literally the best coach in the world for a year. It means that essentially it doesn't mean anything. It comes from within. So can you talk a little bit more about, kind of that within mindset of following through yourself? And I think that's something that I've really been noticing you doing the last couple of years. It's just, continuing to go, but following through.
Yeah, I think that this is a good topic. So if you're following through with what you are saying you're going to do, I think you have a chance to really lay out the roadmap of what you want to do. And the barriers come into play sometimes when people or yourself will tell yourself, you'll be telling yourself like, oh no, I can't do this. I'm only like, for me at the time I was like 22, starting a nonprofit. And sometimes I would have imposter syndrome and then be like, oh my God, I'm 23 and leading a group of 8 people to East Africa to teach English and do village community projects. And I was 23 at the time, like leading, 7 people. And I was, wow, this is a lot to handle, a lot to soak in. But, I would comfort myself by just reminding myself that I've been doing the best I can. I'm doing it authentically, genuinely. I've asked all the questions I need to ask to everybody that I can think of. And as long as you remind yourself, like, yes, are you doing everything to your advantage, or everything that you're capable of to do the best you can? And if you are, then you shouldn't be hard on yourself. However, there's always, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a go-getter, we often will do this thing in our head of like, no, nothing is good enough. Like I have to keep going. And I'm super competitive. And since I can remember, I wanted to be better than everybody at everything. Like, just being honest, I always, as a kid, wanted to be the best basketball player on the playground. I wanted to be able to climb the monkey bars the fastest. I wanted to be able to run the 50-yard dash the fastest. I was like the chunkiest 8th grader, and I still won this 220-yard like sprint because I just wanted it so bad. Even though I was not faster than the other people, somehow I just ran faster at that one instance. And when you have that mentality that you want to be better, then you're at a good place. However, imposter syndrome comes no matter what, right? But you have to remind yourself that you're doing the best you can and to not listen to that noise. And if you're doing what you want to do, then you should be happy, right? If you're working and doing something you love, then you should be happy. And I think that the more you believe in yourself, the better you'll be. But imposter syndrome is hard, and there's no easy answer. But it's just constantly reminding yourself that you're doing the best you can, and you will succeed as long as you keep up the hard work.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's kind of continuously pushing through, and I think it's the opposite. I think sometimes we wait for motivation to come, but like kind of going forward and doing our best and taking action is actually how motivation comes to us, right? We have to create it for ourselves and create our path. And so, with that being said, I would love to, kind of go down this rabbit hole of creatorship and talk about the power. And, I know you've been creating content on the internet for a couple of years now, like very consistently. And can you talk about like what that's done for your life? Because I think some people probably that are listening to this have some ideas on how they want to create. Number one, they don't know what to do. Maybe they're also a person that doesn't want to be like us, like going on videos and like being behind screens, but they want to create and like connect with people. So like what advice do you have for like creatorship 101?
Okay, so there's an amazing thing that on our phones that we have all these apps, right? There's different apps for different mediums of communicating. So we have apps for writing, we have apps for videos, apps for photos, and knowing what you do best at will help you out right away, right? If you do not want to be on camera ever, then you can still be YouTube famous. You can still be TikTok famous by never showing your face on the camera. So just being clear and upfront with your strengths is 101. I believe that there are hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people out here that are too self-conscious to start a TikTok, but they are not thinking that they could start a TikTok without even showing their face, right? If they don't like their voice, then you don't have to put your voice in there either. You can do a TikTok of your room and put it in music. So I think that knowing your strengths and knowing how to double down on those strengths will help you out. Okay, that's number one. The other is choosing the platform that works best for your style of communicating. So not just knowing your voice, your video or whatnot, but we got TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I would say those 6 or 7 you should choose at least 2 or 3 of them and try to post every single day. And that's what I did. So I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. So those 3 I post every single day. Instagram, I only post every day on stories. But TikTok, I post 3 TikToks a day. And YouTube, at least 3 shorts a day. And And I realized over the last couple of years of creating content that almost everybody, I believe everybody listening to this, thinks more highly about their content than you probably should. And that we do not need to be too serious about our content. We do not need to think too highly or think that it needs to be perfect, because all that does, and I've done this too, all that does is make us plateau. And we do not go up. The more time you spend strategizing, like look at this whiteboard. This whiteboard, the more time you spend writing on a whiteboard and thinking about it, you're losing, right? You got to just get on the phone and post. If you're thinking about an idea about to post, create a story around that. And hey, I'm thinking about this idea. I'm thinking about posting like 2 times a day. Like, what do you think about that? Like, post everything. And I think the more comfortable we become with posting, the better. So what I've seen on YouTube, and I've started posting every day since February this year. So what is that, like 4 months? And I have now 844 subscribers and over like 7,000 hours watched. I have a video with 250,000 views. So I just really wanted to hammer down posting every day on YouTube because YouTube is like evergreen content, right? It could be there forever. People will go back years down the road. And so I really wanted to triple down on YouTube this year. And that was just my strategy, because I want to become more of a, how do you say, like not influencer, but somebody who people look up to on digital content, somebody who they go to for information or education or entertainment, those trifecta things. But I think for anybody listening who wants to be better at digital creating, is you have to just take it less seriously, and you have to just be willing to put out videos that are not good. And another reason why I like YouTube is my homies don't see any of the videos. Like literally nobody I know watches my YouTube videos. And there's a part of comfort in that people aren't DMing or commenting. When you post to Instagram, people comment and DM, and your friends will give you jokes, and your friends will say, "Oh, nice shirt, LOL," or they'll be like, "Oh, wow, like you didn't invite me, haha." Like there's so much BS that goes with Instagram that's not really on YouTube. Like I'm dealing with random strangers, and I crack up when strangers will like give me a hard time, or I do like a lot of food content, so sometimes I'll mess up when I make food. Like I'll flip an egg and then the yolk will break, and the comments are hilarious. They blow me up. Like, "Oh, you can't cook. Like Chef Gordon Ramsay would like annihilate you. Like, get out of the kitchen. Like, you call yourself a chef. Like, don't use #chef. Like, this is not cool." But I just love it. And so if you're okay with random strangers like talking like that to you, then I say just freaking go for it and post every day on any platform you can, because that's just the way that you can build yourself in today's era. Digital content is our resume. Like any platform you have, that is your resume, right? That white sheet of paper in your filing cabinet that has your name and your a job and your experience, that's not your resume anymore. Okay, no matter how much you think it's your resume, it's not. It's your Twitter, it's your Instagram, it's your Facebook, it's your LinkedIn, it's your TikTok, and it's your YouTube channel. And it has way more weight. And I promise you, in 2023, in 2024, especially in 2025, you are going to be kicking yourself if you did not produce content in these few years. And TikTok might not always be free. Instagram might not always be free. And if you want to produce content and sell something to the world in the future, it might cost money. And so you might be missing out on this opportunity. And so that's really what hit me this year. I woke up this year, like in January, like, oh my God, I have to produce content every single day for the rest of my life if I want the life that I want to live. I want to be able to do whatever I want when I'm like 35 to 79. I want to do whatever I want whenever. And that's why I want to create businesses, create networks, create systems that can work, make money, inspire people, create positivity, create economics, and somehow just keep moving pieces. But I can't do that if I don't produce content every day. And I can't succeed if people don't believe in me. And I think I used to highly believe in my like physical being maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that I knew anywhere I go, like I could work the room, or I could talk to people and demonstrate high value and get people on my side in physical form. But now I believe I have to focus more on my digital form and get people to believe me and get people to identify my values just through my digital form. And I think the more people that kind of can understand that our digital form is worth more money than our physical form might be off to a good start.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a lot of good points. I think number one that I kind of hear, it goes back to some earlier comments you made about when you're getting into content creation, you have to be able to accept the no, and the no is just like not getting as many likes as other people. I think that's the rejection that psychologically you face when you're initially, starting out. So being able to accept that. But I really do, I think everyone's reason for creating content is a little bit differently, right? Like, I think, I'm kind of hearing you and I know, obviously I know you in terms of like why you want to do it is creating businesses and eventually being able to have that financial freedom, down the line. I know for me, like a lot of times, like I don't think that's my number one reason for creating it. I think my number one thing is like, eventually I want to do, workshops, speaking. And I also just like have been recognizing the tool of Twitter and even some other platforms and being able to connect with different people like that, creating content actually like sends signals like, okay, I'm creating coaching content. I'm going to start connecting with coaches. They're going to understand the struggles and problems I go through, right? You're creating content around Web3, around crypto, around financial freedom, right? You're sending those signals out to other people. You talk about problems, you're collaborating. And the internet gives you an opportunity to connect with people that share the same values as you're talking about, instead of like being physically like in my apartment building. I don't know. I bet there's maybe at most one or two other coaches in here, but the internet gives me access to so many coaches. So really recognizing that and using that as to our advantage is just so important.
100%. I really agree with that. I think that also every company nowadays is now a digital media company. And if you're not, then there's just no way to succeed. And I really believe that no matter what industry you're in or not what company that you want to start or what project you want to do, but really the company aspect, you are a media company if you're any business in 2022, because we need Facebook, we need Instagram, we need a website. And that all takes so much work. And I've started businesses, I've built businesses, and I spend so much time on the content side and making the digital landscape, something that's intriguing and interesting to look at. That, the last couple of years of building businesses, I'm like, wow, every single business is now a media company first. Like, you're a media company first, even if you're a yoga studio or you do acupuncture. Like any business is now a media company first thing. And you won't get customers otherwise.
Right. No, I think that's a good point. And just recognizing that you could do things in the physical world too. Like, I value that. That's why I coach. That's why I do things in person. And then recognizing that the digital universe also exists as well, and being able to invest in both, because you're right. Like, we're only at the very beginning. You're starting to see we all my podcasts I've recorded for Bridging Impact specifically have been, virtual, right? And how do I get the word out? Virtual, social media. And, and the reason that I'm doing Bridging Impact is obviously to bridge wisdom from, us right here talking and in two opposite sides of California to a listener who may be in Oregon, who may be in Florida, right? Digitally. And so I think that recognizing that as an opportunity is so important. So I also want to be mindful that we are running down on time. So I'm just curious if you have any last words of advice for young leaders and those that are working with young leaders, and then also any resources you want to share, and where can people find and connect with you digitally?
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, Justin. So yeah, this is the, Impact Leadership podcast. So I definitely want to say that, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be impactful in this world, then definitely get digital. And if you are already digital, get 10 times more digital. So what I mean by that is get on YouTube and start posting to YouTube. YouTube Shorts are a complete cheat code right now. It is 15 seconds or 60 seconds long. That could be anything shorter than a minute, but 15-second shorts are getting rewarded the most on any platform right now. So if you want to be a leader and you want to influence either the youth, you want to be a coach, you want to be a public speaker someday, or you think you're great at art and you want to share how to paint on canvas, or you want to share how you do upholstery, or you want to share how you sew, you want to share anything, post every single day about how to do this, or my tips for doing this. I made a video 2 days ago about how to unflatten Pokemon cards. So a lot of people out here have Pokemon cards that are curved like this, and how to flatten them. Well, you get 2 pieces of the towel, you iron it out for 3 minutes and let it flat, put it in a book. But there's so many people out here with skills and they want to be a leader, but what you need to do to just fulfill that is just post on platforms. So I really want to encourage anybody to find in themselves to get the confidence and post on YouTube and post on TikTok. If you don't know which one you want to do, then I'll tell you. YouTube and TikTok every single day for the next 12 months, and I guarantee you will have a W-2 waiting for you next year from TikTok and a W-2 waiting for you from Google, which is YouTube. I promise you, post every day, 3 times a day on either one of those, and you will for sure get that. And along with that, being a leader, also not just digital in your physical form when you're walking around the streets, you are a leader from anytime you wake up and before you go to bed. So when you're in the store, you're walking the streets, be nice to people, be genuine, ask people questions, respond to their answers, echo their sentences. Being a leader is just not on digital form. I might have made it seem like that, but be a leader every day, and anytime you interact with anybody, just think that you actually are making impact, because you really are.
All right, beautiful. And where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram at Cendejas. That's CENDESAUCE. You can find me on TikTok at Matthew Cendejas, or YouTube at Matthew Cendejas TV.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks so much, Matt. It's always lovely having a conversation with you. I know our listeners got a lot out of it. Feel free to connect with both of us because we both love, obviously helping people begin their creator journey, their leadership journey, their coaching journey, whatever it may be. Matt's a great resources for Web3 content creation, crypto. So Peace out, y'all. And we'll talk soon, Matt.
Peace out, y'all.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.